So, good afternoon, and can you please tell me if you've watched a lot, a few, none, or something else of my typing sessions before?
uh, Fragments of your typing sessions, but I have had in-depth conversations with my wife about your typing sessions because she watches a lot more than I do. But because I just get into it, but I've seen fragments of your typing sessions.
All right, cool. Can you tell me about a sequence of insignificant events that made up your day so far today, such as got up, brushed my teeth, sat down, looked at the news for a few minutes, blah, 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 blah.
Well, woke up, uh, talked with my wife for a little bit in bed, got up, cup of coffee, uh, smoked a couple cigarettes, and got ready for this interview. Kind of had a late morning.
Cool. Okay. Um, you didn't eat any breakfast? Just coffee?
No, I haven't eaten breakfast yet.
Okay. Do you usually skip breakfast?
No, that's all situational. We were planning on going out to lunch because we have an appointment later next to the restaurant we like. So we were going to go out to lunch, so we kind of just let it ride.
Cool. Um, can you remember what you had for dinner last night?
Last night for dinner, we had. I know the answer to this question. We had Subway.
And do you remember what kind of sandwich you got?
Yeah, I got the same sandwich I get every time. Italian, the spicy Italian.
Yeah, Italian BMT.
No, spicy
Just a
Italian.
spicy Italian. Okay.
Yeah,
And what vegetables and stuff do you get put on it?
spinach, red onions, and pepperoncinis. But they forgot the pepperoncinis.
Okay. And what sauces do you go?
Oil and vinegar.
Interesting. See, I say I nix with the oil. I like a lot of vinegar, but I don't want the oil. Do you do
Right.
you do salt and pepper?
Well, no, I mean unless they ask for it, I'm like you can throw it on there.
Okay, interesting. So, how long do you think that's been your sandwich for at Subway's?
That's been well at Subway. That's always been my sandwich. I grew up in South Jersey, right around the corner from an Italian deli. So I grew up on Italian hoagies. So that's like my go-to sandwich. So whenever I go to Subway, I never get anything different.
Did you go to Jersey Mike's when you were in Jersey?
Jersey Mike's doesn't exist in New Jersey,
Oh, it's not actually a New Jersey thing.
and I don't think Mike's ever been. That guy Mike has ever been to Jersey.
Oh,
Because I've had his sandwiches and they don't seem familiar.
I just assumed he was must it must be a New Jersey store. I guess I was wrong.
Right. Well, I would assume that it would be a New Jersey store, but his sandwiches. But they say it's because of the water content. They can't make the same bread out in different places.
Mm.
Because the bread's different wherever you go because of water and altitude and stuff.
Okay, so growing up in Jersey, did you talk a lot about the Meadowlands?
Oh no, I'm from South Jersey. I'm all about Philly. The Meadowlands pretty much
I see. That's North
is
Jersey.
enemy territory.
Okay, so is Philadelphia truly the city of brotherly love?
Um, well, that depends on how you look at it. I like not really.
Okay.
There's a lot of separation there. A lot of like I don't know if you're familiar with the Eagle with football, but they had like when I was growing up, there was a courtroom in the basement of the stadium for them arresting people at the games because we got crazy and out of hand. So there's not much brotherly love, maybe between Philadelphians, but they're not all about outsiders.
All right. Philadelphia is in Pennsylvania. Okay. So, and did you know early on in your life what you wanted to do with your life?
No clue, man.
Okay.
No clue.
What kind of what kind of high school life did you have?
Well, I did about 2 months of high school. Then I got locked up. Spent a lot of time in juvenile. Got my GED when I was 16, or 16 and a half, almost 17 when I was, so I didn't have to go back to school.
Okay. Uh, So that must have had a somewhat dramatic impact on your perception of things.
Oh, yeah, you have no idea.
Can you
My
talk?
perception of things.
Can you explain it a little bit how it impacted your perception of things?
Well, um, well, it didn't lead to a. I'm 45 years old, and I'd have to say that probably 40 of those years I was just a fuck up. Fucking off, had no direction. So it just fell in line with that way my life was going.
What
Didn't
ma-
give me. I didn't have any goals. I didn't have any structure.
what made you just sort of move towards a different direction eventually?
Um, Age, maturity, the idea that I'm getting old, and eventually I might not be able to walk so well, so I might need a place to sit down,
Right,
rather than just roaming around.
right. So, can you tell me about your media consumption habits if you're not watching something to inform you? So, this excludes things that teach you how to do things or inform you about like personality type and stuff. If you're not watching those kind of videos, it's just for entertainment purposes. What kind of videos do you like to watch?
Uh,
Or,
well,
or
I'm
TV
big on
shows or whatever.
I'm big on movies, TV shows. I would have to say uh, like I watched Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, Dexter, that kind of stuff. Uh, I like a
Breaking
little bit of
Bad was
thrill.
great.
What's that?
I saw Breaking Bad as well. I thought that was great.
Oh, Breaking Bad was fantastic. Put that line. Uh, but I like that kind of stuff. I like romantic comedies. I'm big into romantic comedies, dramas. I like horror movies, but they don't scare you. I haven't found a horror movie that scares me, so it kind of gets dull.
Okay. Can you think of an example of a movie that you started that you thought was going to be good and you got some way into it and was just when you were just like, this is too terrible. I can't continue watching it.
Um, no, I mean, I can't remember the name of the movie, but there was this one movie I've never seen the end of because I must have started watching it at least 5 or 6 times and fell asleep halfway through the movie every time. It was just so boring. I can't remember the name of the movie though. But it was just such a boring movie.
So why did you keep starting it again?
Because I wanted to see the end. Because once you start something, you want to try to finish it. At
Okay.
least try.
Sure. Okay. So, do you think that same value is significant in non-consumption habits? Like, you should try to finish things you start making as well.
Well, I mean that's situational with me. If I look at the way I am with everything, like if I'm in a job and I start something, my job usually entails finishing it. Like I've been a plumber for the last several years, and so when you start a job, you have to finish it. But in personal life, I don't have the best track record of finishing stuff.
Right. Okay. And how did you learn how to plumb?
I learned how to plumb. I was in school for HVAC, and I got a job. They hired me as a plumber. Kind of faked it till I made it. Watched a lot of Google videos, asked a lot of questions. I understand the concepts and how things work. So I've always been good at figuring stuff out on the fly. So I kind of faked it till I made it.
I see. Do you think that it's more important for you to uphold as a value in the world fairness or kindness?
Fairness, I believe, would probably be above kindness.
Okay. Do you think it's more important for you to uphold as a value in the world reliability or affirmation? Affirmation meaning like telling people positive things about themselves and such.
It's more important to me to be reliable than it would be to be affirmative. Affirmative, is that how you would put that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is how you put that. I put it wrong. Okay. So if let's say you were single, pretend you're single and you've got two choices of lady. Lady one is very direct with you and kind of harsh in her talking to you, but always very fair. Every time there's 5 pieces of pizza, you each get 2.5 pieces. Lady two is very positive in talking to you, but she's unfair. Every time you get 5 pieces of pizza, she takes 3 and you get 2.
I'd have to go with the 2.5.
Okay, you want the affirmation. You want the fair one who's not positive, not affirmational.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can handle harshness. I kind of like that a little more, you know.
You'd prefer direct and clear to gentle and unclear.
Of course.
Okay. Um. Of course.
And I like pizza too, so if she ate that third slice, I might be like, hey.
It's,
Yeah.
it may seem of course to you and me both, but for some people, it really is definitely not of course. For some people, they are like, well, actually, it's not really of course for me at all. I'm the opposite of you. It's my take on it is, you know, talk nice to me and say nice things, and I I don't really care about that other stuff. Like if you want the third piece of pizza, I want to be the one who volunteers to say, "Oh, I'll take 2, you have 3." Anyway, so if you want to be the person who gets the 3 and says, "Oh, thank you, and I love you so much," then that's fine. That'll work out fine with me. But regardless, let's continue. So, can you please break down the task of giving someone a haircut into 5 steps?
That's a difficult task. I haven't, as you can see, I don't spend much time in the barber. I would imagine that. Well, first you got to ask what kind of style they're looking for, figure out what kind of style they're looking for, and then I'm assuming wet the hair, do the cuts, shape it up. That's at 4. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm at 4, and then see if the customer's happy with that style. Checking the work would be the last step, right?
Okay, cool. Before you came to have this conversation with me, did you pick your chair that you were going to sit in, or put any cushions on it, or otherwise attend to whether it was comfortable?
No, but this chair's horrible.
The chair is not very comfortable. Okay.
No, pushes you out.
So
like it's got that lumbar thing.
Okay, so do you notice whether or not you're comfortable at any given moment while you're sitting here during this conversation, or is it something that fades into unconsciousness pretty quickly?
No, it's noticeable, but I just make that's why I keep fidgeting in here. Make adjustments, push them away back,
I see.
But I can notice it. I noticed it the whole time.
Would you say that you're more opportunistic or more deliberative when approaching a new situation? Which is to say, are you more likely to act and regret having not thought about it more, or are you more likely to have thought about it too much and regret not having acted when you had the chance?
I think that's situational. There's a lot of times where I've thought about something and held my actions back because of different reasons. But usually I act and then regret the decisions. Well, a lot of regret, but I take the results because that's all situational. Because I could think back and see at least half of the situations I could think of where I thought about it, or I thought while I was doing, and then I could think back to situations where I thought I didn't act and regretted it later. So I'd have to say that's situational.
Okay, let's play World Mic Power. Now, you have the microphone, and you have 30 seconds to say your advice to the world, and it gets translated into every language and broadcast into everybody's ears. What do you say?
To the entire world?
Yeah.
Work harder when you're young. Work harder when you're young so you can retire when you're 45, 50, and enjoy life. Don't fuck off your youth,
Okay.
Don't party like a rock star when you're young. Party like a rock star when you're older and enjoy it.
Okay. Interesting. I've never heard that answer or anything like it before.
Really?
Yeah. Because people always say things like be kind or um, it's that advice is so linked to your SI experience. You know, it's like to your like this is the mistake I made. Learn from my mistake. So it's that approach to the question. Most people don't take that approach to the question. They don't take the approach of learn from my mistakes. They take some other approach. Well, in fact, I haven't been asking the question for a super long time, but I don't think I've ever heard anybody take that approach, learn from my mistakes, before is what it boils down to. Okay, what do you think the possible utility of understanding personality is?
Well, I've just recently delved into it. I know about the Enneagram a little bit, and that kind of type, and then I've been learning about this, and it's very helpful to see how your thought process work. Uh, I've learned a lot about my wife from knowing her type and watching videos about how she thinks, and the different things, and I think we've grown in our relationship based off of that knowledge, because there's more, because when you don't have that information, you're just dealing with what you see, but when you have that information, you see the processes. It helps you understand.
Okay, so let's talk about remembering instances of processes. So, like, one possible way to ask this question is to just say, what I'm looking for here, I'll tell you what I'm looking for before I do my normal way of asking it, which is I'm looking for you to present me an example of a time when you went with your remembered thing and that caused you and you proceeded forward without noticing that this new thing here had rendered your existing path pointless. So I'm going to tell you an example of this right now. It's called the potato touch story, unless you tell me that your wife's already told you the potato touch story.
No, she never told me a potato chip story, no.
Okay, so the potato touch story is this. I used to go to a restaurant. I sat at the counter, and I watched the cooks put the plates out, and then the waiters take them away to the people, right? And I always got breakfast there, but I noticed when somebody ordered a dinner meal, it came with a baked potato. And when the waiters took the plates down and put them down here, before they put butter in the potato, they pushed the ends of the potato with their fingers to make it open up. With their bare fingers, yeah. And then they scoop the butter in. I didn't like that, and so I said to myself, if you ever order a meal here, Eric, you keep an eagle eye out to see how much they touch your potato, or if they touch your potato, right? So sure enough, maybe a week later, I go back, I sit down, I order a meal, and I'm keeping an eagle eye out the whole time. And then when my plate arrives, I realized I had ordered rice pilaf. So even though I got the meal, I chose rice pilaf instead of baked potato, but I still continued to look out for my potato because I was paying attention to what my plan was coming in and ignoring my intuition that should have said, alert, alert, rice pilaf is not baked potato.
Right. No, I mean, I can't think of, because like I said, I'm just so new to this whole thing. Like, I don't even understand all the abbreviations and everything yet. So I can't think of a time where I consciously did that, where it didn't go. Like, there's been times where me and my wife were conversing, because I talk over her a lot. Like, sometimes I'll start talking, and before she finishes, and she told me that she feels that I'm not listening to her. So a lot of times now, like, I'll do that, and then I'll try to repeat back to her what she said that way. So, but that's worked successfully so far. I haven't had any time where that was pointless.
Okay, cool. Then let me ask you this. Is there an occasion you can think of when your intuition led you to approach a problem like meow, and then later you said, gosh, I wish I had stuck with my plan instead of going with my intuition in moment X, because if I had stuck with my plan, I would have had a better outcome?
Oh, you looking for a specific example on that one? There's so many.
Okay, so
So many. Like I react sometimes. Like I just recently had a job. I was in a situation. Me and my wife were separated, and I was homeless. And I had a job. I got a job at a car wash, and I was doing good. And then so my plan was to keep working at this car wash and get back on my feet. And then the guy that I worked for uh, was talking to me a little harshly, and then he said something to somebody else in Spanish, but I understood what he said. He was talking about me, so I tripped out on him, and then I got fired by the owner because he said he was afraid to work with me because the way I approached him. So that kind of was me reacting, and it killed my whole plan of keeping the job and getting back on my feet. You know.
did you do
Is that what
anything
you're
to
looking for?
him? Did you do anything to him, or did you?
No, but I did tell him. I guess from what I'm told, I could be a little harsh. But I told him, I said, you're gonna talk to me with respect. You're not gonna disrespect me like that. But it was in the heat of the moment, kind of. So I'm
Yeah,
sure it was. I
but
was
the bottom line
aggressive.
is the only reason you got fired for calling him on his bullshit is because you're scary looking.
No, I'm thinking that he probably didn't because the idea was I was going to be the assistant manager. He was the manager, and then we had
Oh,
an
here's
owner.
the manager. So you
Yeah,
got
so I think there's more to it than that. He just didn't like me, I don't think.
yeah, the
But
manager. Well, but still, I mean, it's like that's bullshit because it's like it's basically justifying firing you on the grounds that that guy felt intimidated, but his feelings don't comprise evidence of any actual intimidation.
no, not at all, not at all. But he said that he didn't want to work with me. I'm putting words in there. I don't know if he told him he was afraid of me, but he said he didn't want to work with me. And I came in the next day and they fired me.
Okay.
But
All right,
so I'm
cool.
assuming
That's
there's
that's
a lot of assumption.
that's revelatory right there. What you just did. So that takes me to TI questions. Let's do some TI questions and see if I can verify what I think here. Um, so these are like deductive reasoning problems. Some squirrels like to smoke cigarettes, and all things that like to smoke cigarettes are wise. Is it necessarily the case that some squirrels are wise?
Well, based on the parameters of your question, if some squirrels like to smoke cigarettes and all things that smoke cigarettes are wise, then some squirrels would be wise.
Yes, correct. Right. Okay, so how about this one? If only icebergs sink ships and my ship has sunk, have I necessarily hit an iceberg?
Well, again, based on the parameters of your question, it would if only icebergs sink ships, then it had been an iceberg that caused the ship to sink.
Okay, how about this one? If no Americans like curling and I don't like curling, am I necessarily an American?
No.
Okay, cool. And then let's try a genealogy one. Can you tell me who my, assuming everybody's married only once and there are no, like in magic old fashioned land where everybody has only their own biological children with their spouse. And that's it, okay? So,
Right.
who is my mother's husband's only son in law in relation to me?
Mother's husband. Your mother's husband would be your great grandfather.
No.
No, your grandfather. Your mother's husband would be your grandfather, and then his son-in-law. That'd be your dad
Yeah.
or one of your uncles.
No, it's your
Or,
dad. It's the only son in law, so it's got to be your dad.
right. His only son-in-law. Yeah.
All right, cool. Have you ever heard the hats question?
No.
Okay, I'm going to ask. This is the last TI question. And it's one that almost nobody ever gets, so don't be surprised if you don't get it. But it goes like this: there's a warden in a jail, and and the warden decides to have a game with 3 prisoners, and he puts 5 hats in a bag. 3 of the hats are red, 2 of the hats are white.
I've heard this question.
Oh, you have heard. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, we discussed it on great detail. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for alerting me to that fact. So, okay,
No
cool.
problem.
So let me move on from TI then. Can you talk to me about you are currently working for a supervillain, and he wants to use his political influence to get approved to blow up an island off the coast of California with a nuclear weapon. And you've been tasked with coming up with 5 good arguments as to why you should do this to sell the idea to the general public and politicians. Can you come up with some arguments as to why we should do that?
All right, let me. So the basis is my boss wants to blow up this island, and I have to convince people to blow up this island.
Yeah. And it's a good idea. Not to help you or anything, but just that this is a great thing that we're doing, and you should be behind it.
Right. So am I allowed to, do I have to use truth in this argument, or can I embellish?
That's an excellent question, and I would say first let's try to just reframe things, if you can, that are true in bullshit ways to make it sound like it's good.
Right. Well, I don't have. I know this is probably going off the question, but I don't really have any information on this island to base anything on factual.
It's an island that has no people on it. Okay, it's just a sort of a rocky outcrop with a little bit of grass, and it's barely even an island. It's just like it's a chunk of rock, maybe half a mile square wide, that sticks out of the water.
Right. So, I mean, one argument could be that it's in the path of major boating line to where the ships pass through, and they have to go around that island. And if I take out the island, it'll increase productivity in the ships.
That's a good argument. What else you got?
I could say there's volcanic activity on the island that could potentially harm.
Okay, that's one of the that's good. That's fine. That's the other kind of thing where you're making up some shit to make it work, which is fine too. That's also being tested here. All right, keep going.
Right. I mean, it's difficult to do without much information on an island. I could say that there's an invasive species of insect that only lives on this island, and if that insect reaches the agricultural crops in other countries, it can be devastating. So we have to take that island out to save the crops in California. I mean, but that's another embellishment because I don't really have much factual information on this island.
Well, here would be another framing one would be like, well, we want to do this because we think it's a good idea to reintroduce above ground nuclear testing so that more radioactivity gets into the environment, so we have more mutations and a better chance to evolve to climate change.
Wow, that's a good one. Right? That's a good one. Yeah, I didn't think about it from that aspect. I was concentrating on the island.
All right, cool. So this is all lining up with what my initial gut was, which is always nice. But so let me see if I can nail it down so I can feel more certain about it. What do you trust more when knowing about something? What your experience with it, or your instincts about it?
Oh, that's a loaded question in itself because, I mean, my experience with it would also contribute to my instincts about it. But if I know something, I'm more confident. Like, I mean, my instincts, I would go with my instincts because my instincts are based off my knowledge.
Okay.
In the way I see it.
All right. Interesting answer to the question. Cool. Where am I going to... Okay, so... Has your wife asked you the puppy or kitten question?
What's that?
Has your wife asked you the puppy or kitten question?
No.
Which would you rather drown if you had to drown one? A puppy or a kitten, and why?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. The cat's got to go. I love cats and dogs, but I'm a dog person. So if I have to choose between a cat and a dog, cat's got to go.
Okay.
If I have to make that choice.
This is funny because last night on a whim I recorded a bunch of shorts, which are called type hint shorts, which are shorts are limited to 15 seconds. So it just says if somebody does meow to meow, then maybe meow. And what I said was, if somebody gives you an immediate answer to the question, which would you rather drown if you had to, a puppy or a kitten, then they might be meow. Well, that's exactly where I've got you and have had you in terms of typing you this whole time. But let me, before I tell you, and then we can discuss it some, and I can follow up with probing more into this or that. Let me make sure I've got everything checked off here that I can to possibly falsify where I'm going. Okay, what makes you more angry at yourself? If you, let's say, scenario one, you've picked up something and you're going to carry it from here to over there. But as you start going this way, you realize, oh shit, there's this table in the way. And you have to put this thing down and you have to move that table and then go get that thing. Does that make you mad at yourself? Or is it that if somebody demands of you some ideas and then tells you they aren't good enough?
I think it would fit, to telling me my ideas weren't good enough. I mean, I hate backtracking, so putting that thing down to move the table would frustrate me. I'd be like, oh, I should have moved that damn table. But if somebody asked me for ideas and I presented them with ideas that I found were sound ideas and they dismissed them, I would probably be more upset about that, I think.
Okay. Cool. Interesting. I normally don't ask that question that way, and you gave an interesting answer to it. So I'll tell you right now, I guess, because I'm not quite sure where else to go until we talk about it a little bit, which is you're an ESTP. Every single test says ESTP. Your TI is in the first or second slot for sure as definitive. Your FI polar test, the kitten or puppy test, is a basic FI polar heuristic test where I just ask it. If you've never heard it before and don't know what I'm trying to get at, then it works pretty well. In other contexts, it doesn't. So in that case, you gave the textbook FI polar response, which is to just give an answer. Because we have TI as a tool function, both you and me, although we're not the same type. It means that when somebody asks a question, we assume it's designed to have an answer for some purpose of affirming or negating some statement, and so we just give an answer because we get that it's hypothetical, and
Right. Well, I do have to say that my wife told me about the polar bear ice cream question. You know which question I'm talking about? Only polar bears like ice cream or eat ice cream, and I eat ice cream. Am I a polar bear? She said you asked her that question or some kind of question like that. And so I was kind of prepared for those questions to where
it doesn't matter. It doesn't
I wouldn't
matter.
say prepared, but like my the way I would normally act if I was in a conversation with somebody and they asked me that question, I would say that's not accurate. Fucking polar bears aren't the only ones that eat ice cream. I eat ice cream. I'm not a polar bear. You know what I mean? Like,
but it would never occur in that context. But it wouldn't occur in any other context except to test you. And the thing is, it doesn't matter whether you're prepared or not, because I ask different. There's something like 300 some odd forms of those syllogisms. I asked you 3 that I often do ask, which is an only, an all, and a no. But I can mix them up, and so it's like the bottom line is, for people who don't have introverted thinking in the first or second slot, they do not perform as well on all of those kinds of questions as you did, no matter how much they prepare, because it's not exactly the question they heard before. The son-in-law question will trip up just about anybody who's not first or second slot, because all of a sudden they've got to figure out son-in-law. Okay, it's unexpected, So also, your response to the question about whether you would be more mad about somebody critiquing the originality of your ideas or about having to just put the thing down and move it. That is what happens when I try to start by trying to ask a 6th slot question and end up asking an 8th slot question instead. So what I presented to you were two things that shouldn't be compared. One is you've made a mistake. The other is somebody's critiqued you. And
Right.
so what you displayed is that 8th slot defensiveness, which is what you'd expect from if I had framed it as an 8th slot question only, you would have said, yeah, that would make you defensive. But it also suggests that the 8th slot defensiveness is more conscious than the 6th slot self-critique. So I get mad at myself when I TE badly, which is to say, if I do that, pick something up, and then I see this thing's in the way, and I have to put it back down. I always say these things like, "Oh my God, Eric, you're such a fucking tart! Stop being so retarded!" I yell at myself a little bit about this stuff. But if somebody else critiques me for failing to do enough, failing to complete tasks, failing to, then I get very defensive and I'll be like, how much shit I do? I do so much shit, blah, 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 because that's my 8th slot function.
Right.
So you and I have the same 6th, but we have different 8th slots, and so that was also consistent with ESTP, and just everything was really. So what helped direct me this as to how I can render this last 20 minutes or whatever we have useful to you?
Well, we watched some videos on the different typings, and she, just based off of knowing me for as long as she's known me, and she's really a lot more like she knows what's going on with this Myers-Briggs thing. So she said she thought I was ENTP. So we watched a lot of videos on that, and I watched a lot of your videos on that. And I know you played that one video, and you're like, well, anybody who's an ENTP doesn't say, oh, I'm an ENTP, kind of braggadocious. I watched a couple of videos recently about ENTP that really made me look back at my life, and made me really like heavy hit on a lot of the mistakes I've made and paths I chose and things that I did, and now seeing how I could have been pre-programmed to think certain ways kind of changes. Like if I would have had this information a long time ago, life would have been a lot different, that kind of stuff. But I don't know what the difference between ESTP and, because we haven't watched any videos on that.
Okay, so it's not a terrible mistyping of you at all, because the one thing that you and I have in common is we easily switch back and forth between both kinds of knowledge functions. We can talk about ideas abstractly and using our intuition to understand the gist of things and have that meaningfully inform our other understandings of things. But we can also give examples from our personal life, and we can use our experience. For me, the difference is this. You are consciously intuitive and unconscious but able to access anyway, experiential. Whereas I am consciously experiential. I'm an SI person, which means that I start by noticing an example and extrapolate out from that and say, I see Rachel do something, and I think, oh, INFJs must do that. And I think, well, is that true, Eric? Do INFJs do that, or is this just Rachel? But I assume, my initial assumption is that what I see here tells me about the general class of things, even if it doesn't. The NI type knows about the thing for what it is, unrelated to their own experience. In the proto-form of these cognitive functions, are what you call object permanence and shape constancy. In babies, there's a period of time before they realize there's object permanence, when you can play peekaboo with them, and when you uncover their eyes, they're surprised to see the thing appear before them again out of nowhere, right? But pretty soon they learn that there's object permanence, that if they don't do anything to an object, it doesn't move. And so people who are very heavily SI will be very bothered by somebody touched my stuff, somebody moved my stuff. The NI type has shape constancy. It is the quality of a consciousness that is able to say this is a cigarette even if I'm showing it you like this angle, or this angle, or whatever. Now, we haven't seen anything really through every possible angle, and we're constantly looking at things through slightly different angles. So if we didn't have any intuition, I'd have to look at an orange from every conceivable possible angle to experience enough information about it to know it's an orange. But that's not the case because we have this identity creating noting thing called intuition. So introverted intuition then is the thing that has shape constancy, that knows this is a cigarette because it is. No matter what direction you're looking at it from, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change what it is. So that's one of the differences, is that for you, if you are stressed out, you're going to retreat to finding the truth about things. For me, if I'm stressed out, I'm going to take a bath and eat some snacks and stuff like that.
Right.
And another difference is that you and I are equally skilled at parsing ideas for bullshit. Like, in other words, when people contradict themselves, you're acutely aware of it. And you can clearly explicate why it's bullshit, probably. The difference is you're not nearly as good at making up bullshit as I am.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of got a little bullshit.
Okay, so this is where we have to check then. All right, so this is where we want to test. Let's test then extroverted intuition tests. So I'm going to tell you the first half of a story, and you tell me the second half of the story, okay? The first half of the story is once upon a time, there were 2 rabbits and a chicken in the forest. And the chicken was stuck in a bramble bush. And the 2 rabbits, whose names were Ron and Rob. Ron Rabbit and Rob Rabbit came to see this chicken and trapped in the bramble bush. And the chicken says, "Bark, bark, bark, get me out of here." And Rob and Ron say, Rob says to Ron, we could sell this chicken to the local carnivores for a lot of delicious lettuce. And then Ron says, "Well, I don't know if we should do that." So now you finish the story.
Oh, no, and then Rob was Ron. Ron is the one that said, "I don't want to do it." Rob said he didn't want to. He wanted to do it. All right. So Rob then says, "Well, we can also get some carrots." And then Ron thought about it a little longer and said, "Well, what are we going to do? We're going to free the chicken. He's just going to thank us and move on. So we might as well get the reward." And then the 2 rabbits sold the chicken and feasted on the rewards.
Okay. So now let me demo trying to be more extroverted intuition with the finishing of the story, and then we'll try this again with a different story, okay? So if we're going to be like an extroverted intuition dom, they'd finish the story by saying, so the chicken says, "Hold on a second. Before you sell me to any carnivores, be aware of this. I am made entirely of tofu." And the rabbits say, Rob says to Ron, "Tofu? You mean like soybeans?" And Ron says, "I think that's what tofu is, yeah." And they go, "How can you be made of tofu and also be alive?" And the chicken says, "Well, this is a funny story. You're gonna laugh. Sit down. Take a load off for a little bit." And so the rabbits sit down and they start munching some of the grass nearby, and they listen to the chicken tell its story. And he explains, "I was walking by a Japanese restaurant one day, and when I peeked inside, because I smelled the delicious smell of ginger, which, as you know, we chickens are fanatics about, the chef saw me, and lightning fast, faster than I could even possibly imagine, because I was trying to flap and balk away as quickly as I could, ran outside, grabbed me by the neck, took me inside, chopped my head off. But instead of dying, I was reincarnated into the same world as the same being, but entirely made out of tofu this time. And this makes me undesirable, unpalatable to any of the local carnivores. And unfortunately, while I know you guys are vegetarians, and I would love to be able to provide sustenance to you in the form of providing my body as a vegetarian feast upon which you may sup, unfortunately, these feathers are made out of rabbit poison. So,
Wow.
okay, so now let's try it with a different story. So one day, Mary and Joe are visiting the Statue of Liberty. And Mary says, "Watch me." And she jumps up onto the side of the Statue of Liberty and starts climbing up it. Free climbing, with just clinging to it with the strength of her fingers. And Joe says, "Mary, what are you doing? There's no way you can get all the way to the top like that. You're going to fall down. Your fingers can't be that strong." And she says, "I've been working out my fingers for the last 3 years every day, waiting for this moment to prove to you, John, that I have the strongest fingers in the world." Now, you finish the story.
Well, that's an interesting one. Well, John says, "Why do you need to prove to me that you have the strongest fingers in the world?" That's never been a question until this moment. Why are you prepared? Yeah, see, I guess you're right, because I can't finish that story, because now I'm questioning why she has to, like, where'd the whole finger thing come from? Were they mountain climbers in the past? Like, I see your point there.
And the thing is, I didn't have any idea when I started that, Mary and Joe, what was going to happen in that story.
Right.
So
yeah, you just went with it.
Yeah. So I do think, I feel quite confident you're an ESTP, and you are not the only ESTP in the world to think they're an ENTP. And the reason for that is because type descriptions underestimate ESTPs. And I'd recommend a video I made recently called "Which is Smarter, ESTP or ENTP?" And I'll give you the spoiler. They're both equally smart. So
Right.
it's a good video because it describes how your intelligence plays out versus how my intelligence plays out. And basically the difference is your intelligence plays out more usefully, more practically, more impactfully, I guess I should say. That's the best way to put it, more impactfully. And mine plays out more ideationally. So there's one other ESTP I typed to, he was a lawyer, and he described his moments of most satisfaction is when he attained justice for somebody else who was being controlled in TI unacceptable ways. He was like I talked about it in that video. He was what do I call it? When people have like Britney Spears, conservatorship.
Oh yeah, the conservatorship.
Conservatorship, yeah. He was a conservatorship lawyer. So he felt a lot of satisfaction when he went in there and resolved people's problems for them and stuff like that. It's very impact based. Whereas for me, I feel a lot of satisfaction if I say something insightful and people go, "Wow, that's really insightful." That's the finish line for me. And that's all as far as it needs to. I don't need it to do anything else besides that at all.
Right. Right. Yeah, but I mean, so like, like a professional setting, I don't know what kind of work you've ever done, but like I've been like a plumber. I've had to go into people's houses, and I did get a satisfaction out of like solving their problem, finishing the job, So
I was a debate coach. I got satisfaction out of winning.
Right.
But and I was very good, and we won a lot. But the thing is,
the finish line is there because it keeps going on. Like even if you win, you still got to know that
exactly. And eventually, being a good coach requires you to be kind of fanatical about coaching, and it's hard to sustain that kind of enthusiasm for something so involving as debate coaching for years and years. Eventually, you just kind of go like, you know what? I don't. It's like it's not juicy enough. Why am I putting in so much work? It's not. it's not that juicy. I've experienced, or I've tasted all that flavor of juice. I got to stand up on the stage with the School of Excellence, you know, because my team kicked so much ass in the tournament that at nationals that it like got the one of, and this happened like multiple years in a row. So it was like I was achieving in my field there at the highest level I could at the level I was at, which was I was doing middle school debate instead of high school because we had a professional business and like private schools can better compete against middle school than they can in high school, where they exclude private coaches in their schools from competing by the rules because they don't like to lose all the time. Anyway, so that was that, and did I feel any satisfaction? You know, I didn't really feel satisfaction from completing the. I felt satisfaction when we won, and I liked hanging out with the kids. You know, I liked going to debate tournaments. I liked the excitement of people running out of rounds and coming up to me and being like, okay, this kid just said this and I didn't know what to say, and me going, okay, you need to say this, blah 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 blah. But ultimately, I'm super happy just like chilling at home and YouTubing. This is where I belong. I spend all my time YouTubing basically, and it's not.
Right.
It's because it's like it's like an addiction. It's like a compulsion. All I can do is just I have a lot to say, and I always have a lot to say, so there's always another reason to make a YouTube video.
Right.
I don't get a lot of satisfaction from completing any of them because it's always on to the next one. Is what I get satisfaction from is things that I'm currently in the process of working on and moving forward to. When I get actually close to the end and get it done, it doesn't seem to do anything. It's just like, well, that's done, and yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you're not. The finished product doesn't give you any thrill, or so you like the process of doing it better.
Well, a finished product, I approach it from a consumer angle. So if it turns out that some particular thing I've done that I really enjoyed a lot as a consumer, for example, some of my music has a lot of replayability. So if I record successfully what I consider to be a good song based on compared against all my other shit, so I've got hundreds of different things. So it's like I try not to compare against outside stuff so much because that's tricky, but you can compare against your own stuff. It's easy, a lot easier. So if I like it a lot, then I'll listen to it and it'll make me happy to listen to it. But soon enough, it'll just turn into a song that I like that's almost like not my song anymore, you know?
Right.
So, yeah. Any questions, queries, complaints, concerns, quandaries, commands?
I mean, not really. I mean, now if you're saying ESTP, now I don't really know anything about that, so I'm pretty sure my next couple weeks will be have a lot of videos to watch on ESTP.
You might also want to check out my good friend Taylor named Flow State, who's an ESTP, and who for a good chunk of our friendship was in jail for some shit that went down when I was visiting him in Kansas.
Right.
So
I do have one.
No, go ahead. Please, go ahead.
All right. So I don't know if this is a common trait, but like a lot of times me and my wife will be conversing, and we'll be talking about something, and I move so rapidly on from this, like I can move down the line on a subject while she tends to put a lot of thought into something. So she'll be sitting on one aspect while I'm like stories you told. She'll be thinking about that chicken being tofu, but I'm down the line selling the chicken already, and I'll talk over her a little bit, which I've been trying to work on. But is that something that you have a problem with, where you move on from what somebody's saying?
Do you remember what I typed her as?
What's that?
Do you remember what I typed her as?
ISTJ.
ISTJ. Okay, so yeah, the issue there then is is she's not TIing stuff consciously, which is to say, when we're TIing stuff, whatever's being discussed, we're working to parse it into a resolved binary status. It's this or it's that. And for her, that's an unconscious and countervalued function. So when you're pushing on her TI by talking to her, asking her questions, asking her to clarify and define herself, asking her additionally to tell you what the point of something is, what's the purpose of this, you are pushing on specifically her TI and her NI. So that's going to make her uncomfortable. The two spots that I are the same for you are if you were doing the table, like moving things thing, the TE thing, and the your ideas aren't creative enough thing. So that those two slots, those two slots are going to make yourself mad at yourself. If you do it, that's 6. So in other words, when she's not able to parse quickly enough for you, she's going to get mad at herself. And you're parsing at lightning speed compared to anybody who's not TI-1-2. TI-1-2 people, we parse it way faster than anybody else. So you're parsing at lightning speed. She's trying to keep up with you and getting mad at herself for failing to do so. And then probably you're doubling down by saying, well, what is the point of all this anyway? At which point you're saying, and also your personal story, your boring personal story that you're telling me doesn't have any point, is the same thing as her saying, well, the things you're saying aren't creative or interesting at all.
Right.
So that's what happens is there's a thing where you say, I need things to collapse down into binaries, and I want them to have a point. And she's saying, I'm telling you about my experience, probably, is what's going on there.
Well, yeah, I think the biggest problem there is that I move forward in so rapidly in the conversation to where I'm at a different point altogether, and she feels like I didn't pay attention to what she had to say on the subject, which I could see.
Because it wasn't relevant. Because it wasn't relevant to your parsings of it. If something's not relevant to it breaking down to a binary, then you're not going to factor that information in very, very automatically. You'll have to choose to, like you said, choose to change for FE reasons. In other words, you want to manage at least perceptions. You want to be perceived as a good listener. So you'll change your behavior accordingly to try to be perceived better as a listener. It's be perceived as a better listener. But fundamentally, you're going to be expecting her. I'm telling you this story for a particular reason, like that's purposeful, maybe to me. Like I'm telling you the story because it will help me solve this problem. And you're saying, what ideas am I supposed to binary here? And what's under which frame? In other words, what's the point? And how am I supposed to binary this? And you're way ahead of the conversation because you've done a bunch of binary work based on what she said. But her purpose for saying it was not for you to do binary work on it. It was for you to just, like, I don't know, commiserate?
Right. Well, I mean, but I see what you're saying. I think what I'm trying to get at is how do I slow down? Like, how do I slow down and pay attention to the moment?
You don't.
And not slide backward. I'm stuck like that. I can't.
Yeah, you don't. What you can do is fake it better.
Right.
And it's probably
fake it better.
Yeah, fake it better, and it's probably worth doing because you're an FE type, which means ultimately we're cool more than we are genuine.
Right.
I mean, and the thing is, the two can come together like a sweater fusing with a body at some point. But we start off life with no clear sense of what we really want at all. And who a person is very much defined by two particular qualities: what they want and what their experiences have been. And so you have both those as unconscious functions. What your experiences have been is unconscious but strong, and what you want is unconscious and blind. How do you feel right now emotionally?
Emotionally,
Yeah.
uh, even keeled. Like I'm not experiencing any kind of real like emotional like what I would consider emotions. I'm just listening,
Okay.
trying to absorb the knowledge, trying to figure things out.
Can you talk to me about a time you've had to make an emotion-based calculus, such as Mia said Mia to me, and I feel mad but also guilty, and I need to figure out what's going on here.
Uh, I have a little like I would say I don't have an anger management problem because I manage it really well, but I have an anger problem, and I tend to I'll walk. Like if I'm in an argument with somebody, like with a spouse or like I can't continue that argument. I have to walk away and cool my head, and I can come back level headed thinking about it. But when I'm facing a situation where any kind of anger explodes, I have to remove myself from the situation because my anger escalates. But I've known that for a long time, so
So
it's something that
yelling at people doesn't work.
well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's yelling. I do raise my voice when I get heated in a conversation, but I'm not really much of a yeller. I just like I get so angry, I can't. No good is going to come from further in that conversation.
All
You know what I
right.
mean? I have to remove
Yeah.
myself and cool myself down before I can approach that and where any good will come out.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
so I've always been like I'll remove myself, cool down, and then come back to it with a level head, or try to anyway.
Hmm. It's interesting because I was talking to an ENTP, not in a typing session, but in a conversation with Rachel, and one of Rachel's friends on the phone the other day, and she was talking about a work problem, and I was like, "Well, did you try getting mad and yelling at him?" And she's like, "Yeah, I did that. I did that a couple of times." And it's like we expect that to work, right? Like ENTPs expect if I get mad and yell at you, and I use a lot of words while yelling at you, that's going to resolve the problem. If it doesn't, we're cutting out because we can't sustain long battles. We need the problem to be fixed by our yelling at you, really getting really mad and yelling at you one time, or else then you're too much of a problem.
Right.
And
Well, I mean,
and the other difference is no matter how angry I get, even when I was a blackout drunk, I never got physical because I'm not a physical type. So, but if you
right,
are a physical type, you're naturally going to express in physicalities at some point because it's what you naturally are.
right. Well, I mean, I got in so much trouble when I was younger, and it was all because I would lash out physically. I got like they put me in a nut house a bunch of times when I was younger, and then I started getting locked up when I was 14, and a lot of that had to do with anger and aggression. Uh, so I kind of like have trained myself to that I have to walk. I have to separate myself when I start feeling that explosiveness. When I'm about to explode, I have to change that course because I know what that's going to lead me to. You know what I mean? Like, so it's something I've trained my like. It's not. I wouldn't say consciously train myself, but to keep myself out of further problems, I realized that's a problem for me. So I walk. I walk a lot.
Right. Well, and it's also to be expected that as an SE Dom, you are the master of the action function, which means like it's people who have that a function in the second slot that tend to use it too much or use it in the wrong spots. You're kind of the master of your dominant, so you're able to not use it when it ought not be used, and that's where the second slot has a little bit more trouble than the dominant.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to stop this recording now. Would you like me to share it with you privately, or are you okay with me publishing?
I'm good with it. You can publish it.
All right, cool. Thanks. I will do so. It'll publish in about probably half an hour.
All right.
All right, thanks.